There was a Roman officer at Cannae who survived. He was about 18. He watched 50,000 men die around him in an afternoon, watched the encirclement close, watched his commander bleed out in the dirt. Most people who live through something like that spend the rest of their lives trying not to think about it. He spent the next 14 years thinking about nothing else. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio, and in 202 BC, he did something no one else in history has managed. He took the tactic that destroyed his army, the exact tactic, the one Hannibal invented, and used it on Hannibal. This is the story of the student becoming the teacher. And it starts with the most Roman decision ever made. Instead of chasing Hannibal around Italy for another decade, Scipio looked at the map and said, "Fine, if he won't leave, I'll make him." So he invaded Africa. Think about the nerve of this. Hannibal has been camped in Italy for 15 years. He has beaten every Roman army sent at him. He is, at this point, essentially a permanent weather condition. And Scipio's plan is, ignore him completely, sail to Carthage and threaten his hometown until somebody calls him back. The Senate hated it. They gave him almost nothing, no fresh legions, mostly volunteers, and the disgraced survivors of Cannae, men Rome had exiled to Sicily as punishment for losing. Scipio took the shamed men. Of course he did. He was one of them. Fabius Maximus led the opposition, and his argument was not stupid. Hannibal is in Italy, so fight Hannibal in Italy. It's the obvious answer. It had also failed for 15 straight years, because Scipio had already proved the alternative worked. In Spain, aged 25 and holding no legal command anyone could quite explain, he had taken New Carthage, the Carthaginian capital in Iberia, in a single day, by walking troops across a lagoon at low tide that the defenders assumed was impassable. He'd been told about the tide by local fishermen. That's the whole trick. He asked people who lived there. Then he beat 3 separate Carthaginian armies in 4 years and stripped Carthage of Spain entirely, which meant the silver mines, the recruiting grounds, and the land route to Italy were gone. And there was the Metaurus. Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal finally crossed the Alps with reinforcements in 207 BC. The relief army Hannibal had waited 11 years for. Roman forces intercepted him in northern Italy before the brothers ever made contact. Hasdrubal died there, and the Roman commander had his head cut off, carried south, and thrown into Hannibal's camp. That is how Hannibal learned his reinforcements weren't coming. His brother's head tossed over the Palisade. So by the time Scipio proposed invading Africa, Hannibal was already a man holding a position with no supply, no reinforcements, and no strategic purpose left. He was undefeated and irrelevant at the same time. And then there's Masinissa, and this is the part that actually wins the war. Masinissa was a Numidian prince. Numidian cavalry, light, fast, absolutely lethal, were the arm that closed the trap at Cannae. They were Hannibal's edge. But Numidia had its own politics, and Masinissa had lost his throne to a rival backed by Carthage. Scipio backed him instead. So the single best cavalry in the Mediterranean, the exact troops that had ridden down the Roman rear at Cannae, changed sides. Hannibal was about to fight a battle where the other guy had his cavalry. Carthage panicked and recalled him. After 15 years, Hannibal Barca sailed home to defend a city most of his soldiers had never seen. Before the battle, the two of them met. Face to face, in the open, with interpreters, while their armies watched. We do not know exactly what was said. The ancient accounts disagree and were written a century later. What they agree on is the shape of it. Hannibal offered terms. Carthage would give up Spain, the islands, everything outside Africa. Keep the peace, avoid the slaughter. And Scipio said no, because Hannibal was offering to return exactly what Carthage had already lost. He was proposing to pay for peace with money that was already gone. They shook hands, went back to their lines, and the next morning tried to destroy each other. Hannibal's plan opened with 80 war elephants. This was not his usual style. Hannibal was a subtle general, and elephants are the opposite of subtle. But he was short on cavalry, short on veterans, and elephants against tight infantry formations were genuinely devastating. Roman legions fought in a checkerboard of maniples with gaps, and the standard drill was to close those gaps into a solid line. A solid line is exactly what an elephant charge is designed to break. So Scipio didn't close the gaps. He lined his maniples up in columns instead, front to back, deliberately leaving open lanes running straight through his entire army. Corridors. And he put his skirmishers in those lanes with orders to fall back rather than hold. Then, when the elephants charged, every Roman trumpet on the field sounded at once. Elephants are enormous and terrifying, and also, fundamentally, animals that hate loud noise. Some panicked and turned back into the Carthaginian lines, trampling Hannibal's own cavalry before the battle had properly started. The rest did what a charging animal does when it sees an opening. They went down the lanes, straight through the Roman army, out the back and off the field, harming almost nobody. Hannibal's opening move evaporated in about 90 seconds. Then the cavalry engaged, and this is where Cannae comes back around. Masinissa's Numidians and the Roman horse hit the Carthaginian cavalry and drove them off the field entirely, chasing them for miles, which in the moment looked like the Romans losing their cavalry to an overexcited pursuit. It's the classic blunder. Hannibal had won battles on exactly that mistake. Meanwhile, the infantry met, and it was brutal, and Hannibal was not losing. His third line, the veterans who'd been with him since Italy, the men who'd walked over the Alps and won at Cannae, those men held. They were, sword for sword, probably the best infantry on the field. The Roman line bent. For a while it looked like Hannibal might actually pull it off one more time. And then the cavalry came back. Masinissa hadn't been carried away. He'd driven off the enemy horse and turned around and returned to the field. And he hit Hannibal's veterans in the back. That's Cannae. That is precisely, exactly Cannae. The enemy's best troops, fixed in front and destroyed from behind by returning cavalry. Scipio ran Hannibal's own masterpiece on Hannibal's home ground, using cavalry that used to be Hannibal's. The veterans died where they stood. Around 20,000 Carthaginians were killed, and roughly the same number taken prisoner. Hannibal himself escaped with a handful of riders. He was 54 years old and had just watched the last army he would ever command disappear. He rode to Carthage and told the council to surrender. Not fight on, not negotiate. Surrender immediately, because there was nothing left to bargain with. The terms ended Carthage as a power forever. The fleet burned in the harbour where the whole city could watch. All territory outside Africa gone. An indemnity so large it would be paid for 50 years. And a clause that mattered more than the money. Carthage could not go to war anywhere without Rome's permission. Not lost a war, converted into something that required Roman permission to exist. There's a detail in the terms people skip past. Rome didn't annex Carthage. They left it standing, wealthy and trading, and then handed Masinissa a kingdom next door, with a treaty saying Carthage couldn't defend itself without asking Rome first. 50 years of Numidian raids followed. Carthage complained to Rome repeatedly, and Rome ruled for Masinissa every time. Eventually, Carthage fought back without permission, which was, technically, a treaty violation. Rome used it as the pretext for the Third Punic War and destroyed the city completely. So the terms of Zama weren't really peace terms. They were a 50-year fuse. Scipio got the name Africanus and a triumph, and eventually the standard Roman reward for being too successful: political enemies, accusations, and a self-imposed exile. He died bitter in the countryside, reportedly asking that his body not be buried in Rome. "Ungrateful fatherland," he said, "you do not have my bones." Hannibal outlived him by about a year. Hunted from kingdom to kingdom by Roman demands for his surrender, he finally took poison rather than be handed over. Here's the part that should stay with you. Rome did not beat Hannibal by being better than Hannibal. For 15 years they weren't. Rome beat Hannibal because one teenager who should have died at Cannae spent 14 years studying the man who nearly killed him. And because Rome, unlike Carthage, was willing to hand an army to someone who had lost. The ego that made Cannae possible was Roman. The patience that undid it was Roman too. Same city, same century. That's the whole trick, and almost nobody manages it, surviving your worst day well enough to learn from it. If you want more great powers talking themselves into disaster, and history has never been short of them, subscribe. There's a new one every week.